Today is June 15th. Families of Faith. The memory text is taken from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. It simply says, therefore, let us run with what? Endurance. The race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Most probably this memory text has to linger in each one of our heart. If I have to put a theme for this, if I have to ask you, taking into consideration of this text alone of Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 and 2, what is the thing that you can be able to give? Do you have any idea? I have something in my mind. When you read this text, we can give a simple theme for that one. Faith, yes, absolutely right, faith. But I like an important part of it is called as endurance. Underline that word. The question arises, can we endure in spite of circumstances, in spite of situations, without giving an excuse? Can we be able to endure and march forward? Is the question. How difficult or how easy it is to endure?
We won't be able to endure without faith in the Lord and His righteousness.
That's absolutely right. Okay? You can always have this mic when you want to speak. Okay, thank you very much. And Sir says it absolutely very nicely that we can't be able to, but with the help of the Holy Spirit, with the righteousness of Christ, can we be able to endure? If that's the case, let me ask you another question. What about Abraham? What about Joseph? Did they endure?
Yes.
Are you sure? I can think of a man who endured was Job. Not Abraham, not Joseph, neither Jacob. Why I'm mentioning this was, in one way or the other, they faltered. You see? And that's the nature with you and me. There's no option. But even though we do fall, God, in His own infinite mercy, has given us an opportunity to what? March forward. Why? What does the memory text says? Because our focal point is what? Is important. We know there is a race to be run. This life, there is no option. We have to keep on running. The body, where the Lord has been created, is to what? For moment. You take anything, it's for moment. There is no moment. What happens? You become stagnant. You become rusted. So there is a race before us, and we have to reach that one. So a focal point of our eyes has to be fixed on the goal, not the circumstances, not the situation. If we can be able to focus on that one, all these things will come to naught without any detail. That's what it means to say. So, families of faith, it simply says for you and me, no matter what stage of life we are in, we have been through or will we be able to face in the future, we don't know. We don't know what the circumstances will be able to hold on in the future. But it says, our parents, our children, our homes, our families, or even our churches, all are impacted by the culture in which they existed, and greatly existed because of culture. Our habits, our way of life. I met a person from the General Conference most probably 2 months ago. And he says, when I want to come home, back home, I eat the same food what I used to eat in my home. You know, it's the same dress that I wear, what I should wear, you know, the lungi they wear. I still sit on the ground, okay, and be able to eat the food most probably sitting down. I don't use the table. Basically, he was a converted person from Brahminism to Adventist church. He still eats the same spices of what Indian. For past nearly 40 years he has been here. I have not changed. What made him to be so? Addiction, the way hobby was, yes, I will agree with that point, no problem, okay? But one thing is absolutely sure, the culture that we have been able to be grown up. Yesterday I had a guest in my home. He's from Kenya. He came to work in one of the houses there, and they asked me to accommodate him. So I said, I want to accommodate you, so what do you want to have for dinner? Anything you want to prepare. So I prepared some rajma curry and made some rice. I just gave him, you people don't eat spices, you just taste a little bit, that's all. After tasting that, he said, oh my, I can't put that into my mouth. It was so hot. And for me, that was not hot at all. I thought I had much more chilies for that, Why? A way of life, what we have been born from the childhood. Either it might be in our families, either it might be our environment, either it might be our church. There are some people that, whatever it is, 9 o'clock, they want to come to church. And there are some people, even though it is 10 o'clock, they don't want to go. And some of them come exactly at the divine service. Why? They've been born up that way. Nobody has told what they're supposed to do. That's what they're trained, and they do it. What I want to say is this. Our culture, our habit, whatever we have been cultivated in an young age, will carry on. That doesn't mean that we have to carry on the way how it is supposed to. If there has to be a changes being made in our lives for the betterment of our families, for the betterment of our life, to glorify our God, we have to what? Change. Sometimes change is inevitable. There is no option that we have to sit in our couch and say, this is the way it is, I'm going to do that. No. Nothing should be a barrier for a change to glorify God. It's very much important. That's what he means to say. So let's look into our own families. Go back. How we were, what we are, how we can be able to go ahead in life. Christian families confronts cultural challenges all the time. Sometimes the cultural influences can be good. Most of the times, the influences are absolutely very negative. The great news is the power of the gospel gives us life, comfort, and strength to deal with this culture, can bring. So we are going to looking forward of a whole lot of things that how, that our families in faith can be moved forward irrespective of what culture do we come from, what habituated situation that we are in. If there has to be a change made to glorify God, and you and I should be able to be ready, not by our own strength, that's what it says, by the power of the blood of the Lamb that was slain in there 2,000 years ago. Only through Him that we can be able to do that, that's what it says. And keeping in mind the goal. What is the goal? What is the goal? Remember this, what is the goal? What is the goal? What is the goal? I'll ask you the question. What is the goal? What is the race that we are running in?
Endurance.
Okay, faith, endurance. Yes, that is a part of what we are running. We have to have those elements. But what is the real goal that we have?
Be with Him.
Be with Him. Yes, you can rephrase that one a little bit. A little bit rephrase it. Eternal life. For God so loved the world. Why did He come? Why do we come to church? Why do we give a tithe? Why should we evangelize? All this culminates what? To save His soul for what? Eternal kingdom, to be saved. And through the blood of Jesus Christ alone, not by our own self. So our focal point has to be whom? Jesus Christ. You see? Our absolute focal point is on Jesus, where it takes us to eternity, eternal life. That's important. That's the reason there's a song. It's called "This World Is Not My Home." We're just passing through. So I can put it there. We can run into. Okay, let's go forward. Hold fast. What is good? I want to ask you a question. Can you really hold fast to what is good? We are living in this world called good and bad, right? Usually, I have a lot of examples for this one. But one thing comes to my mind when we talk about good and bad is this. Bad always runs ahead of good. Good is always behind the lagging behind. I want to ask you a question. I used to help many people, and sometimes I got fed up because I felt nobody's grateful. Why should I be able to help? And the person whom we help doesn't even talk to us. There's another person coming and says, the pastor will be able to help us in this matter. Okay, we help them. And after a year goes and he also forgets. So things happen constantly this way. And what happens to you? Why should I be able to look for the guy, right? Because there's no use of going to why. We're not getting anything back. And the Bible is absolutely clear. It simply says, do not feel weary in doing good. I want to ask you a question. Can we be able to be weary in doing good? Or if I have to ask you a question, why should we always keep on doing good? Even though the returns might be absolutely not so desirable.
Well, I can put in two parts. If our motive is wrong, you cannot avoid weariness. And if we are focusing on ourselves, then focusing on the cross, and that's in a blunt, I can say that there is a guarantee, the American term burnt out.
Burnt out, yes, yeah.
Okay. And this terminology is not very much used in Eastern culture, but here
It is.
burnt out and plain. But if our focus is on the cross, and then what we are doing is a drop in the bucket. And He died for us. For what? So that we can live. And live for who? Live for Christ. If our motives are that I want to live for Christ, you will never be burnt out. You do, keep on doing, keep on, they call another slang language in America, keep on trucking. Okay. So keep on trucking, and you will be the most joyous and happy person.
Thank you very much, sir. It says it absolutely very clear. Christ's death was for the sins of every human being. Everywhere. Many people simply do not know the great truth yet. To bring this news to the invitation to respond to the evangelistic mission of Christians, because God shows no partiality. Christians are called to treat everyone with respect and integrity, giving them a chance to embrace the good news that is for them as well. When I read this one, my mind was startled in every angle. We have a lot of race, we have a lot of culture, we bifurcate between colors, creed, a whole lot of things, but take Jesus Christ. He came to break the barrier of all that stuff. Like, for example, when Jesus was there in 2,000 years ago, the Jews hated Samaritan, but still worshipped the same God. Samaritans were called as the outcasts. They were not entertained at all. But you see, when you talk about Jesus, the Messiah, the Savior, when he came down and when he was there mingling with Samaritans, you see, how did the Jews felt? How did the Jewish community then? Were they happy? No way. Why? Because they're privileged. The Messiah was supposed to be there with the Jews because they were the descendants of Abraham. And they had all the right. And they were supposed to give the first preference in every angle. But when Jesus came and started telling everything about salvation, but these are the ones who knew about God, who knew about the scriptures, were praying every time, were offering sacrifice, never understood the real mission of what heaven was bestowed upon them. They misused it in every angle. They never accepted. Their cultural way of doing things were entirely different, but Jesus, when he came and corrected them, they were unable to accept the reality, the truth. So that's one of the reasons they started to what? Hint at Messiah. They didn't want it. So Jesus had to step down, absolutely, and say, okay, if you're not being able to accept, then I will go here. And I like the statement of Jesus. He said, I have come here for what? To seek and save the lost. And in another side, you see, the Gentiles were hungering and thirsting for the Word of God. What happened when Jesus was there near the well? When he said, I want a drink, will you be able to give me a drink? Asking the Samaritan woman. The Samaritan woman was absolutely very much surprised. A cultural barrier was there. Jesus knew. He came down to break down. And you see the thirst. How did the Samaritan woman react to the gospel message? She ran. Without even telling anything, without asking who this man was. She understood by the Spirit that the Talib, the word called Talib, or the Messiah, in the language whom they waited, is here. And she goes and tells the whole village to be able to come and listen to this man. What way? No cultural difference, nothing. When Jesus came into the picture, everything was absolutely what? Standardized, subsided. That's what it means to save. For Christ's sake. And I like Paul. And he was the missionary to the Gentiles. And the way how he spoke, even Peter was absolutely very much vehement against Paul. And in fact, you see how Paul was able to chasten Peter and say, this is not the right way. I don't anticipate this part. Our God is for Jews and the Gentiles. And especially he is there for whom? For the people who are in need of him. Barriers were broken. So our families have to take an important note about that in this very beautiful concept of how Paul puts it. Yes, sir, you have something to say.
As far as the cultural barriers, there should be no surprise for people who are from India. And it is, people are treated by the caste system and the barriers, and you said that you derive yourself from the Brahmanism. And those who know about some Hinduisms, I grew up in that kind of environment, in being at farm, and I did not travel too much in the southern part of India, only 3 times in my life. And so I cannot speak about southern part of India, but northern part of India, the less than 2% Christians presence there, Christianity presence there, and most of them were converted from very poor. And people judge you by your profession. And even though you are from in the city upper caste, lower caste, but if you are doing well, your profession is, people will not notice it. But I grew up in an environment, even though we were Christians, but yet our parents, our relatives were not holding a high job. People will not sit down with you to eat. And over the period of time, at one time, I had a friend in 8th grade, who was from the scheduled caste, and his parents will sweep the streets, so nobody sit down but them. And he was very smart in study, and especially in math. I was very poor in math, and therefore, so maybe for selfish reason I selected friends who could be beneficial to me. So I invited him to my home. I said, we'll do homework together. And he knew that we are Christian and that he may not be well. But he came, and my father came after some time, and then he knew who this boy is. And my father was a farmer, and he always held a stick in his hand, most of the time. And he comes and he asks me, who's that boy? Even though he knew. I said, he's my classmate. He said, don't you know who he is? And he chased the boy, and then when it's almost 4 miles journey and he had no way to go. I don't know how he went later on. He walked in the sun. Then I was beaten with that stick by my father. That don't you dare to bring untouchable scheduled caste to our family. So for this story about barriers, there should be no surprise for Indians that we still have a lot of barriers. And of course, we are so fortunate or feel chosen that Jesus came and broke those barriers.
I want to ask you a question. Okay, anyone can be able to answer this one. How much of our faith is shaped by our culture?
Oh, most of them.
Most of them? Yes, sir.
I think everyone's faith changes over time
Mm-hmm.
as you grow in your own maturity and you grow in your understanding of our Father and the impact of the Holy Spirit in life. So I think it changes, and we may be introduced to faith through a particular prism, but I'm not certain that we all choose to stay within that perspective that we were raised up in. So I think we have the opportunity to grow and change in our faith as we grow and change to our maturity.
Yeah, the beauty of the gospel is this. If you can be able to go through the pages of the Word of God, you'll be able to understand whatever the culture is all about, whatever the faith is all about. Like, for example, if you have to take Hindus, okay, and I don't blame them at all. They're raised up that way. If you take a Muslim, I don't blame them at all. They're raised up that way. If you take about conservative Adventists, they're raised up that way. Every individual has his own integrity. Their culture, their upcoming has played a very pivotal role, even with us as Adventists. Right? We don't want to blame them. But the beauty of the gospel is, can I be able to make an impact on those persons who doesn't know the truth of the gospel or the faith either? They're looking into us, they will be able to come to Christ. That makes sense?
Yes, I have a point to make.
Uh-huh.
Like we think about this culture. Culture has been in the world much before we were born into it. And it has such a great impact on our lives. But we have choices to make. Every place on earth you go, there's some kind of culture that envelops people. And they can choose either to remain within the culture or to grow out of the culture of this world and become people who will be enveloped in the culture of heaven. That's more important. Even in the time of Jesus, the Jewish people had their own culture, they didn't want to break from the traditions of their culture, and that was more important for them than the scriptures. And today, I don't find much difference. Any place you go on earth, there is all kinds of barriers, either by race or religion or caste or whatever you call it. There is some kind of barrier that's holding us back. But then, as Christians, if we come to Adventists, we also have our barriers, Adventists, non-Adventists. You know, these barriers hold us back terribly. And then we can't relate to those from outside our church. Like frogs in the well, we always, try to measure them in our own little ways of, oh, it's that way, she's that way. And especially when it comes to our Asian culture, also this caste system and all that, it's been terrible. But then, what do we do once we are adopted into the family of Christ? Do we leave those traditions behind? No, we want to carry them. We have our title as Christians, but then beside that, you have something else. Christian Brahmin, Christian something, and Christian something. And even till today in certain churches, they refuse to sit side by side with a person from another caste. Where does this go? Our religion doesn't go beyond our barriers, then we don't get to heaven anywhere close to it. Unless we stop putting away these barriers. Unless we put away these barriers and stop holding on to them, I guess we can't be saved.
How can we make an impact? In fact, myself and Brother Anand, we were talking about certain things in the morning, which helps us. And Adventists, we are so conservative that we are not given room for others to be able to intervene on who we are many times. We have become so rigid, our rules have become so rigid and things like that. That doesn't mean that we have to compromise our principles, no. Jesus never compromises principles. Never, ever. But without compromising our principles, how can we be able to make an impact on another mind? It's not so easy. I was talking to a Muslim friend just a few weeks ago and things like that. And he's trying to convert me in every angle, substantiating his answers and saying, this is what it is. How can I be able to make a difference and say, this is the truth? I can argue. Sometimes we can win an argument, but I can lose a person. What I'm going to say is this. The beauty of this lesson is this. It says, none of us live in a vacuum. All of us and our families are impacted by a culture in which we live. But our responsibility as Christian is to exist within our culture the best we can, keeping that which is in harmony with our faith, while shunning as much as possible that which conflicts with it. Yes, sir.
You asked that question, how could we accomplish what so far we have discussed? The most important thing is that most of the time we fail when we expect people to change. Then not focusing on ourselves and looking within ourselves, that am I changed? Without compromising the biblical principle. And many times we will find with that question that we need to have some work within ourselves. The number one is unless until we establish an individual established to be a role model, it will not be effective if you're trying to change someone else.
And what about our families? There's an important role in this. As Christians, as Adventists, do we play an important role? Yes. Just imagine if our families are united, if our families been able to follow, our children been able to follow, will it make a difference? With our neighbors, with our friends? It has to make a difference because it is not that we, It is that Christ, that's what the Bible says very, very clearly. It is not that I, Christ that dwells in me. We have to pave way for Christ to be able to indwell in our families first. When Jesus becomes a prime importance of our life, and when His standard becomes our standard, when His life becomes our life, when His culture becomes our culture, it is absolutely very clear. Somebody wrote this way. You know, how many pages are there in our law book? Sister Mary? You know, how many pages are there in our law book? I'm talking about the United States. It is more than 172,000 pages. Somebody wrote there. Why should we have 172,000 pages in a law book? All this 172,000 pages can be succumbed to only the 10 commandments. If we can be able to keep that, that's nothing. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Why are we not being able to? If I ask a question to each one of us for our families and things like that, we have missed a mark somewhere, I guess. Most probably are not passed on to our generation. I don't know. Or we have, as Sir said, we have not set an example to our families. I don't know. Might be a curse. But I go to, I met a person just 3 days ago in a hospital. First time meeting, and a person who is a very God-fearing man, his son. You know, he had all the earrings, left his ears so big and things like that. And they go to church, and you know, they pray, they do everything, and things like that. I was astonished to see that. This guy was absolutely very good. I'm not saying that he was wrong or right or whatever it is and things like that. But as an Adventist personality, how are our children being able to be taught to do what is right and wrong? If our children are not being able to listen to us, why are they not being able to listen to us? Is there a barrier which is caused for our children to not follow our examples? Family plays a very important role in every angle. That's one of the reasons is the power of culture of a family is so important to make sure that a progeny, our generations follows only one culture, that is the culture of Jesus. And that's the reason it says, sustaining families through seasons of change, it says. Many times, it's very difficult to get adjusted to change, right? But sometimes it's inevitable that we have to get adjusted to change. Like, for example, Jesus said one thing. If you put your hand on the plow, don't look behind. You all know that, right? And the second thing he mentions, a disciple comes and says, my father is dead. I want to go and bury him and come. What was the answer of Jesus? Let the dead bury the dead. And then, when Peter, when he saw the Jews coming, he was there with the Gentiles. When he saw the Jews coming, he was a little bit hesitant. He was feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So he thought, let me change my, let me shift myself a little bit here. So let me follow the little culture that I have. God was very vehement. He never spared it. He straight away told him. You see, when changes has to be made drastically, sometimes it will take a long period of life. For example, the prodigal son. When did the change come? After a whole lot of experiences, when nothing was there, and then he came back to his father and said, what? It took a long period of time. But, take the example of Peter. It was instantaneous. It took a few days for him. When he betrayed Christ 3 times, it took instantaneous. That he has to say, okay, I'm sorry, this is not the way I want. What about Judas? You see the change? He knew that what he made was absolutely wrong. But you see the change, what happened with him? And he said he committed suicide. You see, you take all these examples in a sequence, you or I will be able to understand sometimes changes are inevitable that we have to make for constructiveness, not for destructiveness. And the change, when it takes place with the power of the Holy Spirit, I take the example of Joseph again, I take the example of Jacob again, I take the example of Abraham again, and I take the example of anybody in the Bible. The greatest example I like to take is David. Right, Mrs. Red? David. What a person. What a person he is. And you see the transcendent change that took place once he convicted of everything what he was doing.
The changes only occurs, especially in a biblical principle point of view. God reaches or come down or approaches you when you are praying.
Yes.
When He finds people praying, and if you allow me, that the reference to Cornelius and Peter. The Bible, my Bible tells me that they were, when God reached out to these two individuals, Peter and John, they were on the way to prayer house in the ninth hour, which is found in Acts chapter 3. But if you go to chapter 10, Acts chapter 10, first Cornelius' story, when he was having a vision, before he was praying, what time? At the ninth hour. So Cornelius was praying, and Peter was on the way with John. So he reached out to these two individuals, and then how the change occurred. And we know the story about both people, how the change occurred.
I want to ask you a question. You had something to say?
Yeah, I have something.
Yeah, please, sister. Yeah.
Especially this week's Sabbath school lesson is very important to me because it says families of faith. But I don't know how much culture has been introduced into this. But this week's lesson is very important to people who are in Oregon and in other, like in the West Coast. Because if I have to say something, I remember there are so many things I can say, but one thing that remains very vividly in my mind is it was a camp, no, not a camp, it was something that we were having a get together. So we were in Eastern Oregon, and most of the Indians were late to come to church, so we were, as a family, we were first. So we went to a prominent Adventist church. We have not seen that one before. It was in the agenda, so we went to the church. So the pastor and elders of the church told us that when we approached the front steps, they said, "Oh, so you come to worship God?" I said, "Yes." And they asked me if they were Adventist. I said, "Yes." And then they told me, "Oh, there is a place in the woods you can go to church." So I said, "Okay." And we went to the church. And we were not allowed in the church because we were Indians. And it affected me and my kids a lot. And yes, we went with other Indians and we had church service at school in the church and in the woods. And some of the people who some of you know, they told us, this is how it is in this part of the world. We have to accept and not to be discouraged, but we have to uplift our faith in God. So for sometimes, we as Indians, we always had Sabbath school in the house, not in the church, because we were not allowed to go to church in Oregon, especially Oregon. So this week's Sabbath school lesson is very, very important. I hope every person in Oregon has read the Sabbath school and they know how it impacted other people. So, saying that, and I have found a quote in the E.G. White says, "There is no person, no nation, that is perfect in every habit and thought. One must learn from another. Therefore, God wants the different nationalities to mingle together, to be one in judgment and one in purpose. So, coming from that background, when my children got married, of course they got married to Indians, but they married different nationalities. So we all as a family now. So that brings hope and joy to me, because even though we endure, and some of them said in Oregon that my Jesus is black, with black hair, and their Jesus is different. So I think Jesus is for everybody, and no matter what color he is still a savior, redeemer, and a sustainer for all mankind.
Praise God, you brought this important thought about what you felt about. And this was just the same that, we're talking about the Jewish culture where Jesus was present also. And that's what happens everywhere, wherever you go. They ostracize and everything. There's no option, this will remain till the out of the second time. But in spite of that, that's the reason what is our goal? Eternity. Who is our hero? Jesus Christ. That's the reason I asked the question, can we be able to endure? Endurance, we are called for endurance. To take the 12 disciples of Christ, what happened to them? Everybody was killed in a different manner. Why? For doing something absolutely right. What about Joseph? What mistake, what crime did he commit that he is supposed to, suffer under the slavage of Egyptians? Was it necessary? What was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Was it necessary for them to be able to undergo all this one? What about the person who wrote the book of Revelation, John the Revelator? When you see all this one, it should be able to give us the courage and impact, and anyone. The Bible says it very clearly. Jesus said to his own mouth, my ways are absolutely narrow. How many are going there? Only few. When it happens, what all happened to me will happen to you. When it happened to the Son of Man, when they ostracized him in every angle, and the same thing is going to happen for us if you and I are truly being able to follow the footsteps of Israel. But no turning back. The focal point, Jesus, eternity. Just keep on marching. That's one of the reasons. Circumstances should overtake you rather than you overtake the circumstances. Do you know what I mean? No circumstances should be able to, put us down. That's the reason Paul says it absolutely very clearly. Neither death, neither life, neither good, neither bad, neither principalities, or powers of heaven, nothing can change me from the love of Christ. That's what he said. Yes, sir.
Yes, I wanted to go back to setting yourself as a model for others. And I come from a family with 33 nieces and nephews. And they're scattered all over the world, especially in England and here. And I must say that the majority of my nieces and nephews, I'm the second youngest of 9. And you usually don't get respect if you're the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
And according to our culture, we give more respect to elders than. But I praise God that even my older brothers, they look up to me. And even this morning, my oldest brother, one who's older than he called me, that he said he wanted to discuss family matters. I said, I'm on the way to church. And when I come back, maybe tomorrow, and I will call him. And just wanted to share, in 1998, I traveled to England on the way back after burying my mother in India. So, in England, the lifestyle People drink beer like water as a substitute. It's very common. And my nephew, who's 2 years old, maybe 1.5 years older than me, and usually in their tradition, every dinner there has to be wine on the table without any compromise. So when he invited some of other friends for a dinner, hey, my uncle has come from America, so please come. But then he is warning the other people, make sure, I want to let you know there will be no wine served on the table, and don't even try to bring it your own. Three of them, the relatives, they said, we are not coming. If you are not going to serve the wine, we are not coming. There is no, meal is not complete without wine. And my nephew, he took his stand. He said, no, I'm not going to allow this while my uncle is present. I will be dishonoring him because he led the family to make us a better and Christians. And I was the first one to become an Adventist. So sometimes if you steadfast, hold on what is good and try to help others to let it go, which is evil.
Thank you very much for the contribution. We can make an impact, okay, in every angle of our life, through individually and as collectively. Yes, Brother Anand.
We should, as Christians, sometimes we may confuse or mix what is cultural and what is Christian. So we have to be maturing in our faith so that we don't mix what is cultural with what is actually Christian. Because sometimes what happens is that we think that, okay, dressing in a certain way is a Christian thing, whereas dressing a certain way is cultural. You know, it's not, some aspects of culture are not always opposed to what is Christian. Like Paul said, you know, I try to be, you know, in Rome as a Roman and Jew as a Jew. So that means what? He's trying to be culturally sensitive without compromising. So too often we have become very exclusive in thinking that somehow whatever we believe and whatever we practice is all Christian. And therefore we shut ourselves from accepting others as they are, and too often we fall short of, you know, the mission of reaching out to others. So all I'm saying is that we should be discerning about what is cultural that is not opposed to Christian principles, as opposed to what is actually Christian.
Thank you very much, Brother Anand. That's absolutely right. If we anticipate another person to accept the belief system what we have, you know, it's not so easy, to be very honest with you. But most probably persistently, if we can be able to make sure that we can stick on to the principle that what we have learned, and if the Lord can be able to work in our hearts, and everything is absolutely fine. One day or the other, things will change. I like this Sister White's quote here. It says, no respect of person with God. Whoever is, rich, poor, young, old, is no respect of a person. Listen to this one. The religion of Christ uplifts the receiver to a higher plane of thought and action, while at the same time it presents the whole human race as alike the object of the love of God, being purchased by the sacrifice of His Son. At the feet of Jesus, the rich and the poor, the learned and the ignorant meet together. Sister Amula. It says, and then, with no thought of caste or worldly preeminence, all earthly distinctions are forgotten as we look upon Him whom our sins have pierced. The self-denial, the condensation, the infinite compassion of Him who has highly exalted in heaven, put to shame human pride self-esteem, and social caste. Pure, undefiled religion manifests its heaven-born principle in bringing into oneness all who are sanctified through the truth. All meet as blood-brought souls, alike dependent upon Him who has redeemed them to God. What a beautiful testimony. That's just a white puts it today, right? No caste, no creed, no higher, no low. If people are bifurcating, that is inevitable. That's the way how the world is somehow. But since people are bifurcating, that doesn't mean that we have to either go down or go up. It talks about the love of Christ, it talks about the humility, it talks about the condensation of our life, that whatever it is, the race is set, the goal is there, and the Lord has redeemed us. Let us run the race with patience and what? Endurance. No turning back. No turn to your left, don't turn to your right. Don't look behind. Don't even look forward because we don't know what lies ahead. Psalms 121, what as I always say, I lift up my eyes unto where? The hills unto heaven. And He is the one who is going to be a deliverer. Amen? May God bless us as we contemplate on this. Do you have any questions? Or do you have any comments that you want to add to this?
I think every culture is very important.
Absolutely.
No culture is greater than the other because God created every human being according to the image of God. That's what I understand.
Yes.
And I think with prayer and the guidance of the Holy Spirit will help us and enable each one of us to understand the culture of others and uplift Christ.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Sir, you have something.
Yes, something I'm going to share something I've been entertaining myself and examining myself with for maybe more than 2 years. Sometimes I examine other people or challenge them to examine this thought, and I've sort of added to it today because of this thought. And the question that I examine myself with, and sometimes engage others with the same question is, will a racist be happy in heaven? He's walking around this earth as a racist, but once he gets to heaven, all these people whom he has, well, they're there too. Will they be happy in heaven? And so that is the question I examine myself with, and I ask others to examine. Now I've got to think about, well, will a bigot be happy in heaven? The bigot, he's intolerant of people who are different. Well, we'll all be there.
Yeah.
Will you be happy all of a sudden in heaven? He's a bigot here, he's going to heaven as a bigot as well.
You're right, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you, brother, but I just wanted to make it very clear also. It's not my thought, it's the Bible. If you're racist or bigot, the heaven is not place for all. It's not for all. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you are going to be automatically go to heaven, like many people think. Okay. Otherwise, Jesus died. He paid the price, and he rescued us from the clutches of the devil. To be not to be racist, not to be bigot, and not to be. So therefore, if they hold on to those evil things, they will continue to be with the prince of this world. And in the end, we know what will happen. And with the Revelation 20,
Yeah, the beautiful thing about one thing I want to summarize here is this. The Bible says it very clearly. Not everybody who says Lord, Lord will be there in heaven. You all agree with that?
Well, let me just make sure I'm clear.
Yeah, no, you're clear. You're absolutely right.
I'm saying that.
Yeah. You're absolutely clear. We're not disputing about that.
Just amongst ourselves.
Yes.
What do you think? Will you be
Yeah.
in heaven.
No, we are not disputing that. Absolutely right. But what I want to say is, I want to substantiate the point. You know, when the Bible says, the first will be last and the last will be first. You know, one of the worst king ever lived during the king of, during the time of Israel. Who was the worst king ever lived?
Ega.
Huh? No,
And this is Manasseh.
Manasseh. He was one of the most wickedest king ever lived on this earth, sir. He shouldn't have been existed, but he existed. You know, even though he was such a wicked king, at the last moment he repented. Take for Paul. Who was he? A ruthless man. A ruthless man. What happened to him? So God gives an opportunity. Most often, who knows? The first might be the last and the last might be first. So the beauty of Christianity or the beauty of love is this, of course. This is what I don't understand, brother. You know, really I don't understand this concept. I'm groping with this concept. You know what's the concept? You work from morning 6 o'clock to evening 6 o'clock, the wages is the same. But if the person comes at evening 5:55 and work for 5 minutes and the wages are the same, do you want to accept that? My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, and that's what God is all. He's not respect of a person. He knows the heart. He can change anybody's heart instantaneously. We have to just keep on praying. Let us march our faith, that's all. There is a goal, we know the truth, and the Lord has inspired us, and the Spirit of the Lord has been able to speak to us. So let us not deceive the Spirit individually, looking into the circumstances of the situation. Let it not control us, but let the Spirit of the Lord control our life. Looking into the goal that we have, looking into the face of Jesus, run a race with endurance. And one day I know all these barriers will be absolutely broken. And when the Lord comes the second time, we will be there.
Just one more point I want to bring. In light of what's happening, especially nowadays, I know it's not good to bring those things into consideration in worship time, but it is very real, and we as Christians should consider this, which is beware of pride, intolerance, condescension, anger in the name of religion or culture. That's what is breaking down a lot of families. And also, beware of these things in the name of religion or culture, of supporting those who practice that. Our Christianity has to be measured in terms of how we treat others who may not deserve to be treated as well as you may think. That's how Jesus exemplified when he treated the Samaritan woman better than she expected. That's what we are here as Christians to do, which is to exemplify how we treat others who may not deserve, the way they should be treated based on what we may think they are. In fact, if at all anything, we should go out of our way to treat others better than they expect to be treated. And that's how we can make a difference.
Thank you for that comment.
In the culture.
Yes.
Just wanted to make a quick questions and the comments. I can only speak for myself. Paul's teachings, who's the father of the New Testament, that's what made me his counsel. When he says, die daily. And then it is my own concept of my personal life. If I don't see, if I'm not hungry for his righteousness, no matter how the food is so good, if you're not hungry, it is not going to taste anything. Okay, you may want. Okay, somebody's forcing you to eat. And if first there has to be hunger for his righteousness, then you make sure that you don't remain hungry, and that righteousness must fill you. And then you will be able to follow the counsel of Paul, die daily. We are all broken,
Yeah.
we are all sinners, and if we have these two concepts, and I know that when he appears, the claws will happen, and we will be able to hear the sound of the trumpet.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for your contribution. It was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for getting out a very important point that we can be able to. So, may God bless each one of us. We have understood a little concept of what the Lord has been able to teach us today, and may God guide us through the Spirit. We can be able to go forward. Yes, Cecilia.
I just want to say a little about my experience in Mother's house. I used to go to Mother Jesus. And what I learned from her, and she said too, when we see Jesus in others and treat them as you'd treat Jesus. So in that way, what she did, her work, and it really impacted my life too. And I used to see many people who are different parts of life. They used to come and give their service there. So I think all in all, if we talk ourselves as a Christians, is like Christ life. And if we see in others Christ and treat how we would treat Jesus.
Yeah, it's not only you, Sister Mary. The whole world admires Mother Teresa and her sacrifice. That is the type of commitment that we all have to have in whatever the respect the Lord has called us. To be a light, shine a light on the morning. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's sit down and prayer before we could be able to. And before that, I think so we have an offering being collected, and request Sister Mary to come forward and collect the Sabbath offering before we could be able to close out. So God is so gracious, and He has helped each one of us to be able to grow. Christian experience is nothing but growth in Christ. And only the Spirit of the Lord can be able to enable us to grow to the next end. Let's not be babes, drinking yet milk. Let us chew a little bit of meat. That's what Paul says it. And when some hard things come up like this in our discussions and things like that, it should be more healthy in a Christian perspective, that we can be able to take forward the gospel commission that He has in store for each one of our lives. Thank you once again, and God be with each one of us. Let's seek the Lord in prayer. Gracious God, I want to thank you, Jesus, for being with us. You are not the respecter of a person. You respect every individual as we come to your throne place. Many times we are not humble. There is pride taken there. Many times we think that we are going on the right path, but we might be entirely opposite. O Lord of heaven, let not our culture, let not our trade, so Father, which we have taken from our mother's womb, might continue, but help us to have the same culture of heaven, O Father, so that we could be united, joined together, and reflecting your love, your character, and through our lives, many more souls might have an opportunity to see Jesus. Thank you for being with us and answering our prayer. In Jesus' name I pray. Let's just take 5 minutes break. Want to use the restroom, want to use a little water, come back again for the praise and life worship. Thank you very much.